Once upon a time, there was a field with two horses in it. Now, from a distance, you might say that each horse looks like the other. But these horses were different. Once you got closer to them, you could see something quite interesting. One of the horses was blind. His owner had chosen not to have him put down, but instead had made him a safe and comfortable barn in which to live. Now, this alone sounds pretty amazing. But if you stood by and listened, you could hear the sound of a bell. It came from a smaller horse in the field. Attached to the smaller horse's halter was a small copper-colored bell. It let the blind friend know where the other horse was, so he could follow. Stand and watch these two friends for a while, and you'd see that the horse with the bell was always checking on the blind horse. And that the blind horse would listen for the bell and then slowly walk to where the other horse was, trusting that he would not be led astray. When the horse with the bell returned to the shelter of the barn each evening, he would stop occasionally to look back and to make sure that the blind friend wasn't too far behind to hear the bell. Like the owners of these two horses, God does not throw us away just because we're not perfect or because we have problems or challenges. God watches over us and even brings others into our lives to help us when we are in need. Sometimes we are the blind horse, being guided by the little ringing bell of those whom God places in our lives. At other times, we're the guide horse, helping others to find their way. From these words, do you sense any doors opening for you? In 2004, Viktor Yushchenko stood for the presidency of the Ukraine. Vehemently opposed by the ruling party, Yushchenko's face was disfigured as he almost lost his life when he was mysteriously poisoned. You remember all that in the news? But this was not enough to deter him from standing for the presidency. On the day of the election, Yushchenko was comfortably in the lead. The ruling party, not to be denied, tampered with the results. The state-run television station reported, "Ladies and gentlemen, we announce that the challenger, Viktor Yushchenko, has been decisively defeated." In the lower right-hand corner of the screen, a woman by the name of Natalia Dimitruk was providing a translation service for the deaf community. As the news presenter regurgitated the lies of the regime, Natalia Dimitruk refused to translate them. Quote, "I'm addressing all the deaf citizens of Ukraine," she signed. "They are lying, and I'm ashamed to translate those lies. Yushchenko is our president." The deaf community sprang into gear. They text messaged their friends about the fraudulent result, and as the news spread of Dimitruk's act of defiance, increasing numbers of journalists were inspired to likewise tell the truth. Over the coming weeks, the quote-unquote Orange Revolution occurred as 1 million people wearing orange made their way to the capital city of Kiev, demanding a new election. The government was forced to meet their demands. A new election was held, and Viktor Yushchenko became president. Philip Yancey writes this: "When I heard the story behind the Orange Revolution, the image of a small screen of truth in the corner of the big screen became for me an ideal picture of the church. You see, we as a church do not control the big screen. Go to any magazine rack or turn on the television and you see a consistent message. What matters is how beautiful you are, how much money or power you have. Similarly, though the world includes many poor people, they rarely make the magazine covers or the news shows. Instead, we focus on the super rich, names like Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey, Betsy DeVos or Donald Trump. Our society is hardly unique. Throughout history, nations have always glorified winners, not losers. Then, like the sign language translator in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, along comes a person named Jesus, who says, in effect, don't believe the big screen. They're lying. It's the poor who are blessed, not the rich. Mourners are blessed too, as well as those who hunger and thirst or are persecuted. Those who go through life thinking they're on top will end up on the bottom. And those who go through life feeling they're on the bottom will end up on top. After all, what does it profit a person to gain the whole world and lose his soul? From these words, you sense any doors opening for you? Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a professor of theology at the University of Berlin in Germany in the 1930s. And at this time, German Christians were divided over Hitler. One group allied themselves with Hitler. They wanted a pure German nation. They formed an official German church which supported Hitler and banned Jews from holding official positions within the church. Bonhoeffer was among those who could not go along with Hitler's anti-Jewish, radically nationalistic German vision. With others, he set up an underground church, which explicitly refused to ally itself to Hitler's dangerous Third Reich vision. In 1937, Bonhoeffer's church was sacked, and he fled to London. 2 years later, he was faced with a choice. He'd been offered one of the most prestigious theology appointments in the world, lecturing at Union Seminary in New York City. Or he could return to Germany to head up an illegal underground seminary for the churches that refused to go along with Hitler. Bonhoeffer decides his faith is meaningless if he takes the easy option. And so he heads back to Germany and finds Hitler so evil that he abandons his commitment to nonviolence and gets involved in a plot to assassinate Hitler. The plot fails, and in 1943, Bonhoeffer is arrested. In prison, he leads worship services for his fellow prisoners until that fateful day in April of 1945, just 1 month before the end of World War II was declared over in Europe, when he's executed by the Nazis. Through all this, what distressed Bonhoeffer was the way so many Christians could sell out to Hitler's evil vision. How could people who owned the name of Christ so betray Christ? How could they pray in a church that banned Jews from holding office? It convinced Bonhoeffer that religiosity, in and of itself, was worthless. It didn't matter how fervently a person believed in Jesus, how many times each day she prayed, how earnestly and sincerely he sung hymns on Sundays. It didn't matter. In the end, the measure of spirituality is not how we are in the church, but how we are in the whole of life. In the end, the true measure of spirituality is the degree to which we live in the world as a man or a woman who is for others. No boundaries, no walls, only love. From these words, do you sense any doors opening for you?